Recording. All right, welcome to Unit 1, Day 2 of the We the People National Invitational. My name is Christine Hull, and I will be your facilitator today. We are with Stanley British Primary School from Colorado today. In a moment, I will have the judges introduce themselves, followed by the students, and then we will begin the hearing. Students will deliver a 4-minute prepared statement, followed by 8 minutes of judge questions. My microphone will be muted during the hearing, and I will hold up the 1 minute and time signs. I suggest that you use gallery view rather than speaker view. All of the students have been spotlighted and will appear on the top of the screen. At the conclusion of the hearing, judges will give brief feedback to teams, and then we will conclude. Judges, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning. I am still Alan Broadman. I am still a recently retired high school teacher from New Jersey. Looking forward to hear what you guys have to say today. And by the way, Jack, points to you, you did not take down the Chicago Cubs poster. So good job.
Good morning and welcome back. My name is Glyptis Angrider Jones. I am with the University of Louisville's McConnell Center and look forward to hearing your remarks today.
I'm still Tim Moore, a Brewer fan from the University of Wisconsin.
Okay.
I'm Henry Malik, and I'm in 8th grade.
Hi, I'm Jack Magoon, and I'm in 7th grade.
Hi, I'm Caroline Wanabo, and I'm in 8th grade. And these are our teachers, Susan Cleveland and Mike Wazelinski.
Good morning. Okay, so you obviously know which question we're doing today, but I will go ahead and read it, and when I am done, you may begin. If man in the state of nature be so free as has been said, if he be absolute lord of his own person and possessions, equal to the greatest and subject to nobody, why will he part with his freedom? Why will he subject himself to the dominion and control of any other power? How did John Locke answer these questions? According to John Locke and Thomas Jefferson, what is natural law in a state of nature? Do you agree or disagree with their reasoning? Why or why not? What did Locke mean by the social contract? Why did he think it necessary? What obligations does the social contract place on government and on the individual? You may begin.
The end of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. John Locke.
Existing in a state of nature where there is no legitimate political authority, no unbiased party able to judge disputes, and where people live only according to the law of reason, may seem ideal to maintain individual liberties. Yet true protection of one's rights by anyone other than oneself is nowhere to be found. For Locke, the single greatest reason for humankind to leave a state of nature and join a state of society is the preservation of one's property and one's life.
By virtue of natural law, individuals have a duty to respect the property, lives, and liberties of others, even in the state of nature. However, there is no ability to protect these rights. First, humans have a bias towards self-interest.
Secondly, there is no impartial party to settle differences. And thirdly, it lacks power to support a correct sentence and to enforce it properly.
People who have committed crimes will usually resort to force to retain the benefits of their crime, making the punishment dangerous to those who enforce it. Natural law and natural rights coexist, and Locke argues that a higher power is necessary to preserve our natural rights. One freely gives up some liberties for the protection of life, liberty, and property, currently dubbed as pursuit of happiness.
In the second treatise, John Locke writes that natural law is given to us by God, can be discovered by reason alone, and applies to all people. Jefferson would add to this by reminding us that God created humans with a moral sense, invoking a person's feeling or conscience.
This gives individuals the ability to know what actions should be done and what actions should be avoided. Locke goes on to state that man can do whatever he thinks fit for the preservation of himself and of others, so far as the law of nature permits. And if it weren't for the corruption and viciousness of degenerate men, there would be no need for any other law.
In a state of nature, individuals would pursue self-interest and wealth, but not at the expense of others. Individuals would have equal opportunity, although outcomes may be different. Jefferson shares the moral duties which exist between individual and individual in a state of nature accompany them into a state of society.
As a panel, we agree that natural law or moral reasoning should be a part of any society. Our Constitution's basis in natural law for the protection of natural rights have been provided to American citizens with more protection for individual rights while guaranteeing more freedom than any other people on earth. In addition, the Declaration is inherently a natural law document. Jefferson purposely pulled its main components straight from Locke.
When Jefferson said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, he was paraphrasing Locke. The whole reason for forming our government was to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, as natural law alone could not fully execute.
Another theory of Locke's is that of a social contract or an individual's agreement to give up the freedom of doing whatever they choose and live under the rules of a government. He believed that people would feel insecure without a social contract, obliging both citizens and the government to certain standards in order to protect the citizens' individual rights as well as the common good, bearing a set of moral and political obligations for both the government and the individual.
Individuals will give up the unlimited rights to do anything they want to, and the government in return is obligated to protect their natural rights. Therefore, Locke concluded, in every multitude there must be some governing power to direct the people toward the common good.
The Constitution outlines a social contract dating back to 1787 and is structured to protect the natural rights of its inhabitants. Today, citizens are not bound by age ink scratched across a scroll many lifetimes ago, but personally engaged with the social contract on a regular basis through voting, protesting, and rallying, tacitly keeping the agreement alive.
We are now open for questions.
Okay. So you talked a bit about rights. In fact, you talked a lot about rights and their role within this context of a natural rights philosophy and social contract in government. Now, if, as Locke asserts, the purpose of government is the protection of these rights and the securing of life, liberty, and property, when should government be able to limit these rights?
They are able to limit these rights with laws that they can make through the process of making a bill and then turning it into a law. And they limit these rights by one example is you can't sell guns out of your house to protect yourself if you don't have a permit.
But adding on to my panel mate, when the government can inhibit and limit your natural rights is when they start intertwining and limiting other people's natural rights. Tying back to my panel mate, if you were to sell guns out of your house for your pursuit of happiness, that might inhibit someone else's natural right to life. So that's when they should be limited.
Do you think there's any state of natures now anywhere?
I believe that humanity as a big society has moved on past the state of nature into even in undeveloped countries where there isn't a big federal government and there isn't a bunch of policemen and policewomen and law enforcers, there is still law that is different from natural law and the state of nature.
What if I would say, up in the hills and mountains of Colorado, there's somebody living in a cabin. Are they in a state of nature, or are they still in the contract?
They're still in the contract because they're still upholding their end of the social contract to be governed by the government.
Yeah, even if, adding on to my panel mate, even if they don't feel like they're being governed, they still are, and they are still adhering to their social contract. So the government adheres to their part and, I guess, lets them live in a cabin because that's what they want to do.
How are they still being governed? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so they still have to obey the laws that the government and the state governments have in place for them, and if they break that law, they still do have a consequence.
Adding on to my panel mate, a specific law that they still have to abide to could be traffic laws. So if they were driving on a highway close to their cabin, they still have to follow those traffic laws that are put in place by the legislature.
Thanks. I'm going to switch focus here. So if government doesn't serve the purposes for which it was created, so if someone decides that government's not doing what it was designed to do, what right do people have? What right to reaction? What kind of reaction? Let me rephrase the question. What should people have the right to do if government isn't doing what it was designed to do, in their opinion?
They have the right to overthrow the government, or they can, if it's the president making those mistakes, then they can impeach the president, and so that they can elect a new representative to lead their country.
An example was on January 6th when people didn't, I guess, like what the president, not what the president was doing, but what the government was doing, and they really supported the president, so they rallied, protested, and broke into the Capitol.
Adding on to my panel mates, another thing that people could do is exercise their right to protest. For example, when they were passing the 19th Amendment, which is women's right to vote, a big part of that was women protesting and men protesting to get that right.
So would you qualify January 6th as a revolution?
Not entirely, because they weren't necessarily always planning to overthrow the government, just to, I guess, support the president, in my opinion. So I don't believe it's a revolution, but it got pretty close.
So is it possible to have a partial revolution?
I think it is possible, like if we had a revolution to replace Congress or a revolution to get new people on the Supreme Court, I guess that could happen. But I think since it's not really, in my eyes, a full revolution, I think what other people would view it as is more of just a protest.
So let's say I am in the mountains of Colorado, as Tim noted, and I live in my little cabin, and yes, that cabin is in the United States, but I have my own water source on my property. I use I don't use an electricity. I have cut myself off completely from government. Okay. I stand up on the top of my hill and say, I am revolting against the American government. Do they still have authority over me?
Yes, they do. Like if you, let's say, killed a person in the mountains, police.
I didn't say that. I just said I'm living on my hill. I'm not bothering anybody.
Yeah, you're not. But let's say you committed a crime in the mountains, even though you're not bothering anybody. Let's say you hunted something when it was out of season of hunting. Let's say that happens. The government can still take away your guns, your hunting permit, all that, because it still has control over you.
In addition to my panel mate, even though they aren't bothering anybody, they have their own water source and they're free in the mountains, they still have to be governed by, at the very minimum, a state government, because they have to obey their traffic laws, those everyday laws that they have to follow. And if they break one of those laws, they do have a consequence.
In agreement to my panel mate, but here's another point of view. What if, let's say, all that happens, you're cut off from electricity, water, you have your own water source. Could the government govern you if it knew how to find you? So let's say you did hunt out of season, how would they know? And is it still okay to do that? Because technically you're still being governed, but also technically you're out of governing because the government doesn't really know where you are and doesn't really know you at all.
Okay, that's fairly perfect timing. All right, so now it's time for our feedback. So I'll let one of my peers go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I'm struck by a lot of your argumentation is trying to parse through this idea of what Jefferson called altering or abolishing. And you're in good company, because scholars and philosophers ever since have been wondering about what is the meaning of altering and what is the meaning of abolishing. So that's kind of what we were sorting through here in this last 10 minutes or so. And I thought you did a good job of holding your ground. You've put a pretty high bar on renouncing or retreating from the social contract. And I'm intrigued by this question. Especially the folks that want to go live in the panhandle of Idaho or wherever. So it's an interesting discussion to hear and be a part of as you sort through this question of renouncing, retreating, or abolishing. So you're very thoughtful, and I've enjoyed the opportunity to kind of venture into your thinking here. And your thoughts on January 6th, whether it's a revolution or not, probably not. They're still fighting for a feature within the contract, the president. They haven't said get rid of the presidency or get rid of Congress. It's not a total collapse. So I really appreciated your sorting through this very difficult question, and I wish you luck.
I chime in. I enjoyed in your opening statement your presentation of both Locke and then how you used Thomas Jefferson and illustrated how Jefferson builds on or beyond Locke on a couple of points. So I enjoyed hearing you parse out those details and encourage you to keep thinking about how our early founders used some of these ideas and built on and around and beyond these philosophical ideas. Again, also enjoyed the conversation about January 6th, hearing your thoughts there and what the social contract looks like or doesn't look like today, thinking of it in real current event context. So I appreciate your ability to bring this question and these ideas to a very contemporary, real sense, and have enjoyed the time, like Tim said, with you all, and wish you all luck moving forward.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with a lot of what's been said. This is, as a teacher, I would look at this question and go, oh my God, really? There is just so much to talk about here. And therefore so much that you have to know in order to be able to respond to our questions. So I think your opening did a nice job of kind of allowing me to follow your argument through. And I think that was well done. There are some things, yeah, I'm not sure January 6th is a revolution, but again, would it be awfully interesting to spend more time talking about that and what that idea of revolution really does mean. I think, and I may have misheard this and I'm not sure, you talked about our documents, in essence, our system providing the most rights. We provide a lot. I think you might want to think about what some other nations provide and then question whether they really provide them or not. And that's a whole nother aspect of that. So, but I think on the whole, guys, I very much enjoyed a discussion and a conversation, and that's what this was. And it's what it's supposed to be. So thank you very much, guys, for what you've done.
Thank you.